So many people, when they come to our company, I am the creative director, owner, and founder of Big Bold Brand, they come to us and say, we need a logo. And I look at them and I say, no, you don't. You need a brand. And they go, well, same, no? No, it is not the same thing. So my role and part of my purpose is very much teaching business owners and those who are leaders that brand is very different, and it is probably one of the most underutilized, most powerful tools they didn't know that they had. And if they build their brand right and execute and launch their brand and grow their brand, it will do wonders for their business. So, what are you going to walk away with today? We're going to cover, I want you to form an understanding of the difference between branding and marketing. And my hope is that it's not as complicated as you think. We were going to talk about research that reveals how to earn and get more referrals. We're skipping that part today. I want you to get clear on what brand is specifically, and I'm going to give you a case story that ties it all together. So you're ready to dive in? It won't surprise you that I'm going to deal with the elephant in the room first. Let's have a read of this. That's pretty much how I feel in a room of people when they go, we do marketing, right? No. I do branding, but that's marketing, no? No. And in most cases, there's this big piece in any company, in any room, that is ignored, and it's called branding. And part of the reason it gets ignored is because some companies don't even realize that they have a brand. But the danger in that is, if you don't build your brand, someone else will build it for you. So this interesting little thing that is actually alive and evolves as your company evolves sits there and often gets ignored. So let's talk about branding versus marketing. Branding is who you are. Whether you intentionally create the who you are that shows up, or whether it is just interpreted by those that surround you. You are who you are, we are, the adaptation piece. Are you that adaptation of other people's opinions, wants, needs, desires, or have you intentionally thought about who I am as my identity? Marketing, on the other hand, is what you do. Branding is about building a relationship. Marketing is about generating a response. Branding builds loyalty. Marketing is about a transaction. Branding is strategic. There are deep roots to it. There are feelings associated. It ties to emotion, and it has a bunch of layers that need to be figured out. Marketing is very tactical. It's about an action that drives a reaction, and it's almost like the zeros and ones in development and programming. Is it on? Is it off? Did it work? Did it not work? Branding is emotion related. It generates a response. Marketing is about reason. It's left-brained. Oh, that price looks good. I'm going to go there. People shop on price. They buy on value. Value is tied to emotion, which is tied to beliefs. Branding is about pull. I invite you to come learn about us. I invite you to build a relationship with us. Marketing is about push. Hey, we're selling this. Did you see our new product? Check out our discount. Push, 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 push. So, knowing that, and leading you to this, I'm going to ask you, what is a brand? If you haven't seen me talk, I pull in the audience. So you're all in the hook.
An image.
An image.
And a thought.
Okay. Anyone else want to?
Makes you feel some sort of way.
Ooh, I like that. It's an identity. Go deeper on that for me.
Like you can identify, yeah.
No, you almost said it. You can identify with something.
Yeah, well you can. Like if I just think whatever, like Kellogg's, it's a brand, but I can identify that cereal or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, which identifies with some sort of emotion. I have breakfast, or it's that kind of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a connection.
Yeah. So in essence, you're all right. Let's talk about what branding isn't. It's not your logo. It's not your color palette. It's not your product. It's not your advertising. And these are all the things that we have been told that it is in interesting levels, but when we dig in, it's all these, it's an image, it's how people feel about you, it's an identity, and all these things are interrelated, and it all ties back to perception and emotion, and in some cases, belief systems. So, one of my favorite quotes is from Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon. And he says, "Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room." Think about that for a minute. Does that intimidate anybody? Does that scare the living shit out of anybody? It's funny when I watch students react to that, and you can see the ones that get it, and they almost go white. Because they're still in those formulative stages of, I really still care about what people think about me. And it is a pretty intimidating statement. But what that means to me, as a business owner who runs a company, is brand is everything that you do. It's every piece of your company and your staff that touches people. It could be as simple as a voicemail. And if I'm a new customer and I've been referred to you, and I just come to your website for the first time, or I happen to give you a ring and all I get is your voicemail, your brand is whatever that primary touch point is. And if it's not aligned to what you want it to be, you've got work to do. First impressions last, right? Technology fail. So let's talk about what your brand is. This is where it gets really interesting for me. It's an equation. Your brand is your reputation. Makes sense to all the things we've talked about so far, right? But your brand is also about your exposure. You can have the best reputation in the world, but if nobody knows about you, guess what? You have no brand. So the power in this is the intention of how do you want to be known? And then how do I get myself, my company, our organization, our product out to market? And how are we getting people to talk about us? Because ultimately, reputation lends itself to being talked about. If I wow you, the chances of you going and saying, wow, Karley and your team at Big Bold Brand did amazing things for us, and people go tell me more, and then more people, they're at a networking event and someone's raving about us and there's some energy and excitement and someone else walks in and they engage, all of a sudden our exposure goes up and up and up. Any questions about that so far? We're all moving along the journey here? All right, awesome. So, often people aren't quite sure where to fit brand then. So we're talking about marketing and sales and all these pieces. So it really relies on your brand experience, because you can't form an opinion if you don't have an experience, right? So where we play, and our belief as to where brand lies, is at the intersection of sales and marketing, client experience, and culture. They're all interrelated. All these things deliver a client experience. And so ultimately, brand sits at the center and flows out. So think about, if I don't intentionally create my brand, what happens to all of those pieces? What happens to your client experience? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Well, I think what you said at the beginning is absolutely true. If you don't create your brand, somebody else will. So you've got one whether you want one or not.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
You got one.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it what you want, or someone else make it.
Mm-hmm. Blake, you made a face when I said.
I just feel like that whole Venn diagram would go.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the little things and pieces that you create within your brand. If they fail to align, it's almost like this Jenga board that you put together. And, often companies' brands exist with unstable, but the pieces are there. But at any given time, if one goes away, the whole thing comes down. So to create your brand, and I get asked this all the time, I get people really excited about it, and they're like, okay, so what do we need to do, Karley? How do we do this? Effectively, you need to define your purpose beyond making money. If any of you have seen Simon Sinek's talk, How Great
Why?
Leaders Inspire Action, we always start with why. Because that is ultimately the heart of the passion of the business. Vision and mission, it's always good to know where you're going, especially if you have team members and employees and you want to inspire them and bring them along with you. The vision's a really good piece to have. Mission, some people will trade that out for purpose. It depends on the organization and how it works. Guiding principles, aka values, you want to build a persona. You definitely want to know what's different about you. How often do we, well, why should I buy from you and not you? Well, what makes you different? And what's your value proposition? Why do I care? Your brand promise, and also your brand story. So these are the core elements that you need to start building that brand.